Welcome to the Saturday Pitcher Nail Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at the 7 o'clock and later games for Saturday, the Saturday slate, and some decent arms, pretty clear-cut favorites. A lot of guys that kind of stay away from. It's a pretty easy slate. We were going through before the show. More guys in good spots, more bad pitchers than anything on this slate. So we'll be breaking that down. You feel pretty good about this one?
Yeah, I'd say arguably there's more like nostalgic 1990s basketball names that come up in my travels than the actual baseball slate. But yeah, let's get rolling.
All right. Yeah, I'll let you can talk because I had no idea what the hell you were talking about before the show half the time. So
all right, I guess if you're listening, you can comment in the comment section there, but do you know who Shandon Anderson is? I feel like that's a pretty recognizable Utah Jazz small forward from the 90s. You guys know that guy, right?
We'll let everyone chime in, and we'll just let the crickets play because there's no one that knows who Shandon Anderson is.
I'm pretty sure he got owned by Michael Jordan a few times, maybe.
Who didn't, though?
That's a good point. But
All
in the
right,
finals.
let's launch into some pitchers here.
Either way.
Yeah.
The reason I bring him up is because Chase Anderson.
Yeah.
We're looking at the Phillies and Brewers here, over under of 8.5. Do either of these intrigue you for sort of this later slate?
I mean, Chase Anderson, I guess you could say intrigues me just because he's playing the Phillies. The 8.5 over under is still a little bit scary. I expect a lot of the runs to come from the Brewers side. Anderson, not necessarily a great arm, but should be one to get the job done. A steer of about 4.02, so he's not been tremendous. Not a big strikeout guy, but this Phillies offense is pretty bad. I think you don't mind him as far as an SP2 on DraftKings. You look at the Phillies; they ranked 29th in WOBA going back to last year against right-handers. And also a 21% strikeout rate. So I think a win's in doubt, or likely here, not in doubt. And overall, I think he's a decent SP2 option on DK. FanDuel, I won't be touching him.
Yeah, I think when you look at their stats over the last few years, they're you don't necessarily see the upside with sort of the K percentage or anything like that. But I will say for Chase Anderson, he does look like he's having a good time out there in his DraftKings pitcher. So if you're looking for a good guy to have a good time with, it might be an option in your happy leagues.
He's the guy who's like, when you need to go get a beer run, he's the guy who tags along and goes.
He's always buying.
Yeah, he is. That's a good one. On the other side of that game, Charlie Morton, no thank you. We can pass on him. Yeah, Mets Braves, next one. Steven Matz versus Chachin here for the Braves. 8 over under. Mets are decent favorites here, minus 148. Matt's an interesting play tonight. Obviously was roughed up in his first start, but bounced back against Cleveland. 9 Ks over 7 innings, got the win. He's a strong arm tonight against this Braves team that just really isn't that great. Most of their stronger bats are from that left side. And you're going back to last season, Braves, a 21% strikeout rate against Southpaws. They ranked dead last in WOBA. I think he's a strong play in all formats. I don't mind him at all, just because really those top options don't really intrigue me much. I think Matz and Waka, just points per dollar, are my favorite arms of the slate.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just a weaker Braves lineup. So, and as you mentioned with the matchup for his arm, that's a pretty good matchup for him. So, yeah, I like that.
Yeah, definitely. And on the other side, not really looking at Chachin against this Mets team.
Ulis, baby. we were talking before the show about his pronunciation. Impressive wording by his parents there. I dig it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you don't want your kid to be lumped in. Like, you want him to stand out.
Exactly.
You want the scouts to notice him, and that name's going to do it.
And there's just a lot of extra letters in there, so I like it.
But Matt's a pretty comfortable start for me tonight. I know his blowout might scare you off in cash games, but I think he's a fine option on tonight's slate. More so GPP, I think you can lump him in for for GPPs. Walker's kind of the safer arm against Padres for cash games.
Right.
7-10, you got Cubs and Reds, 8.5 total here. Cubs big favorites. Lackey obviously coming off a monster start. Kind of an interesting matchup here. Obviously, you don't like the park factors. Pitched well against Cincinnati here, but he was at home. Went 6 2/3, 2 earned, 7 strikeouts. So 18 strikeouts over the last 2 starts. It seems like he's kind of bouncing back a little bit after that first outing. I think tournament play only for me just because I like Matz and Walker a little bit more. If you wanted to make a weird pivot, I think Lackey would be the guy. Not looking for him to really outscore, but maybe just be a different name as far as lower ownership.
Right, like you mentioned, there's 2 more solid options, and this is a pretty straightforward slate in terms of who you want to go with. So maybe as that second pitcher on DraftKings or something like that. But yeah, probably not the main guy you want to go with unless you're trying to be contrarian tournament lineup type.
Yeah, and I do think he does have a little bit more strikeout upside than Waka, even though Waka is facing the Padres as well. Lackey just has more of enough of the secondary pitches to get guys out. So I think if you were going to swerve, it would probably be Matz and Lackey in GPPs would kind of outrank Waka for upside. But I think safety still goes with Waka.
Right.
On the other side, Dan Straley, your boy.
My boy.
Not a guy I'm picking on at home against the Cubs. I just think it's a tough matchup. The ballpark factors are really against him. He's shown some improvement here, but overall, not really looking at him to get the job done.
Yeah, I mean, he was fun the other day when he was like 4,000 or whatever he was. He was decent value, but this is a tough matchup. I mean, Cubs have been crushing everyone, so not much of a shot from my boy Dan here. So I think we're avoiding him tonight.
Yeah, definitely. And looking at the next really 2-3 games, these are games that we're staying away from. Orioles and Royals, Vance Worley against Chris Medlin. 2 top offenses that rank in the top half. You got an over-under that's pretty high tonight. Essentially a pick 'em, so there's no real strong clear-cut winner for as far as a win goes. I don't see any potential in these 2 arms.
Yeah, not really an appealing matchup on either side for me.
Yeah. And obviously Coors, we got that in the night slate. Kenta Maeda, I think overall, you're staying away from these 2 guys. I'm not necessarily think Maeda's going to have a bad start, but I just think kind of like today, I think or Kazmir is going to be a guy who kind of limits his team, but he's not going to be great for the price tag.
Yeah, and again, there's so much offense on that field that it's tough to sort of trust him in that type of matchup.
Yeah, and obviously at that price tag, as well as he's pitched so far to start the year, I just don't think he'll pay it off. I don't think he'll be bad, but I just don't think he'll pay it off. You're better off going with other options.
Right. So, and this is a 9-game slate. So is this bordering on not even being contrarian, sort of just not doing it tonight?
Yeah, it's just way too big of a slate to take that big of a risk.
Right.
I mean, I would rather go with Chase Anderson against the Phillies at home than rather take Kenta Maeda in that ballpark, even against the Rockies team that I think is going to be kind of boom or bust throughout the season. I think their offense is a little bit up and down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you.
So next one here, you got Pirates and Diamondbacks. Another high over-under, 9.5. Juan Nicasio. Interesting play when he's at home, but on the road, I'm not really looking at him here. Chase Field. This hot weather, the balls really fly out. You've seen some offense here previously. Ruby De La Rosa, not a guy I'm interested in just because his struggles with left-handers continue to get the best of him. And obviously you're looking at Marte McCutcheon on the right side. Once I'm looking for offense here, I'm not looking for pitching.
Yeah, just a few lower end options here in these past few games that there's not much there for upside. So even when you try to differentiate yourself, you don't necessarily just want to go because no one's on him. It's not necessarily like that all the time either. So probably staying away from these guys as well.
Yeah, definitely. Looking at the later games here, start breaking into them. Michael Wacha taking on the Padres. Kind of my strong guy that I'm looking at tonight, obviously going up against a Padres team that's just dreadful against right-handers. They rank dead last in WOBA against righties, 22% strikeout rate. Wacha, not a big strikeout guy, but you're just looking at him for safety. You're looking at a quality start. He's not too badly priced. He allows you to get exposure to Coors by being so cheap. I a strong favorite here. I don't think you can get any better.
Yeah, and I think you can pay up at pitcher and sort of figure it out with the rest of your lineup tonight because there aren't really many strong options. So you can kind of spread it out and maybe not necessarily get that four team stack, something like that. So maybe you can spread it out a little bit more amongst the positional players.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that's going to be the way to go tonight. You're not going to really want to load up on anyone in particular, but these guys do they allow you to get those mid to high tier players from kind of all over the slate tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Padres, there's no starter announced as we are here talking about it, but we won't be targeting anyone against the Cardinals anyway. So moving on to the next one, Mariners and Angels. Felix Hernandez was scratched last night. So he is pitching today. Now he is an underdog, sitting at -120, 7.5 over under. Hector Santiago is pitching. Santiago, kind of an interesting play here. Better off at home than he is on the road just because he's a big-time fly ball pitcher. He's an interesting GPP play tonight just because you're looking at the Mariners' middle-of-the-road offense against lefties. They're 17th in WOBA going back to last year, 21% strikeout rate. So I think it is interesting as far as tournaments if you want to make a swerve. But once again, he's priced very similar to Matz and Waka. So this would be kind of an ultimate GPP move for me.
Right, but it is pretty intriguing for tournaments. I mean, and then you look at the other side with Hernandez. I think this is sort of the heart of where you want to start building with Walker as well. You kind of start looking at those three from the beginning and see what you can make work with them.
Yeah, I mean, Hernandez is a guy. He's pitched decent this year. I mean, his walk rate is a little up. Obviously, 6 last game, and he had 5 the one before. So something might be up with him as far as his walk rate so far this year. But against this Angels offense, I don't mind him just because they've been dreadful. Outside of Trout, there hasn't been much going on, and you can easily pitch around Trout and get through the other 8 hitters here.
Definitely.
And also, it's one of the better ballparks to pitch in. So. Speaking of the better ballparks to pitch in, AT&T Park, Marlins and Giants, Jose Fernandez, one of the exciting pitchers to watch in baseball, Jake Peavy as well. Not so exciting. I didn't want to make that transition. That was a bad transition to Jake Peavy.
Jake Peavy, you have some redeeming features. I did enjoy you at one point, so this is nothing personal. You're just kind of mediocre now. It's nothing against you. It's all right. But there's just new kids on the block now.
Yeah, it's time to move out of the way, sir. Hand the ball over. Jake Peavy, not a guy I'm looking at tonight. I mean, if he couldn't get it done at home against Arizona's offense, I don't have any faith in him getting it done at Miami, who I think is a pretty equal comparison. Not at his price. I think you rather just pay up the extra 1,000 to some of those other arms. Jose Fernandez, intriguing. The Giants team aren't a team that strike out a bit, so I think his upside might be a little bit capped because they strike out just an 18% rate against right-handers. But Fernandez, intriguing. You might, he's the guy, if you're building 10 lineups, maybe you put him in 1 or 2. That's how I see him tonight.
Interesting. I mean, but it's a relatively weak pitcher slate, correct?
It is.
I mean, I think he's definitely in play, but maybe not 100% of your shares go to him. But like you said, get him in a few.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, he does have tremendous upside. And this Giants team hasn't been great offensively so far to start the year, so I don't mind him. And I think he's more of a tournament play. I think cash-wise, I'll pay down to those other arms and just use the leftover salary for bats.
Definitely.
So that's going to wrap it up here with the pitcher nail down. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.